eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on?
No matter how far you go into the dark, when you flip, you go exactly the same place to the light in our galaxy. Everything. Because everything is in balance. Everything is a polarity.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is.
What the hell is going on, everybody? How are we all? Happy Sunday. Thank you all for being here. About 100 of you freaks in the chat ready to go. I appreciate it. Thank you all for being here. Hope you all had a good weekend. Suki's here. Where is she? Yep, and she's got some snacks. We've got some snacks for the girl tonight. That's why she's up and about and not asleep, because she can smell them. And what we're doing today is we're going to be looking at Steven Spielberg's Disclosure movie that's meant to be coming out like about this time next year, if I remember correctly. And the reason why we're looking at that is because a video has just surfaced basically saying that it's being filmed in some kind of like Catholic religious institution. So we're going to be looking at that. We're also going to be looking at an interesting clip that I've pulled from a presentation from Karl Nell, where he says some really interesting things, not just about the knowledge and people around the world getting used to the idea that a non-human intelligence has been interacting with us for a long time and that this isn't new, but talking about how esotericism and, you know, let's just call it magic to keep it simple, is almost at like the forefront of scientific discovery. And that is also not new. Really, really interesting stuff. And to finish off the show today, we're going to be talking about a plane that's gone missing. And it's not obviously the first time a plane has gone missing, but it's not the first time that a plane has gone missing in this exact location. And it's in Australia. Crazy stuff. But also, given that it's Sunday and it's Weird Week, we're going to be hanging out. And hopefully, you know, we can go back and forth. I want to get your opinions on things. And hopefully this one will be a little bit more of an interactive show. Because if you were here the other day when we all went on a trip around the world together, that wasn't interactive at all. In fact, I was basically just throwing information at you for like an hour and a half. But it was a really fun stream. I hope I had a great time just yapping for an hour and a half. I hope you guys did too, and I hope you learned something, because that was a good one. I really enjoyed that stream. So I think let's just kick the show off by giving the girl a treat, because she clearly wants one. And then we'll get into we'll take a look at this clip of this nun talking about Steven Spielberg. Here we go. Yeah. What a good girl. The best girl, in fact. The best one. Harudo Okawa, you little weirdo. Thank you, my man. Appreciate the support. Let's get some love for Harudo in the chat. And let's jump over to the Polarity TV and get into the show. So like I said, this video just popped up. Actually, you know what? I'll read you this first. Just in case you don't know. Just in case you live under a rock. Okay? I'll read you this first. Steven Spielberg's latest gets a new title. A few updates on Steven Spielberg's next film, known as The Dish. So this is what it was originally going to be called, The Dish. The film has apparently been retitled as Disclosure. Hopefully it won't be mistaken for the 1994 film of the same name starring Michael Douglas and Demi Moore that was an erotic thriller. And Steven Spielberg's film seems to be the total opposite of that. Okay, 1994 Disclosure. Let me just write that down. Shooting on Disclosure is set to begin in New Jersey. Interesting. On February 28, the cast is composed of Emily Blunt, Josh O'Connor, Colin Firth, Eve Hewson, Coleman Domingo, and Wyatt Russell. Far out. They really picked a cast with not the easiest names. No word yet on whether Spielberg regular John Williams will be composing the score. No plot details at this time, although I think the title kind of maybe gives a little bit away. But the story, written by David Kopp, is said to be a two-hander with a UFO storyline. We probably won't be getting any additional details on this one as things seem to be pretty hush-hush. The film's set to be released on May 15th, 2026. So there you go. Under a year to go. Okay, I've just ruined something that hasn't happened yet, but that's okay. We'll just roll with the punches. So there you go. This is from February this year. So this isn't And this is nothing new, but I just thought I would mention it in case anyone is living under a rock. So let's take a look at the video that popped up this week just on X.
I know you're not going to believe me, and you're going to totally think I'm completely lying, but I swear on this little tiny Bible right here that this is the truth. I'm telling you the truth. There was a movie shoot here at the convent for the last 2 weeks, and you're never going to believe this part either. The director of the movie is Steven Spielberg. Yep, they approached us sort of out of the blue months ago asking if they could shoot here. And everybody thought it was like a scam, like it wasn't the truth. But it turns out it was, up until he came on one of the sort of setting up days where they were looking at everything and planning. He showed up that day, and that was the only time that we actually believed it was true. But they were here, they shot inside and outside the convent for, I think, 3 days. There was a lot of setup before that, a lot of tear down behind that. They were at the retreat house, and they had craft services tables set up over there. They were the nicest people in the world. That's what I really wanted to emphasize about this whole experience, is that a whole cast and crew, everybody up to and including Mr. Spielberg, were some of the nicest people I've ever met. And I worked in Hollywood for 23 years, and it wasn't like that when I worked in Hollywood. People were really, really sort of bloodthirsty and cutthroat, and nobody was really nice. They would only be nice to you if you could give them something. But I swear upon this little tiny Bible, oops, wrong hand, this little tiny Bible, that every single person from the lowest to the highest in the hierarchy of filmmaking on this crew was incredibly nice. They weren't just nice, they were kind. Like when we went over kind of shyly to see if we could eat at the craft services table, everybody was like, oh yeah, come on in, help yourself, nice to meet you. And they were very quiet and respectful of our way of life. Of course, everybody fell in love with Jenny because she was the star of the whole thing. I think it's supposed to be coming out in summer 2026, and it's a UFO movie, believe it or not. Some of it is set at a convent. The cast members that we met were Eve Hewson and Josh O'Connor. So nice, so humble, down to earth, a little bit shy even. They were so kind. I didn't get to meet Mr. Spielberg personally, but the costume people and a couple of other people asked me to be a consultant for some of the costuming and the props and the movement, the business that the nuns were doing in this. And so I was about 3-4 feet away from Mr. Spielberg. And the thing I need the public to know about him is that he is just excited to make films now as he was when he was just a kid out of film school. He was so excited. Every scene he would shoot it, and then afterwards he would go, good job, guys, excellent, that's wonderful, every time. I thought surely he's going to get mad about something, but he didn't. He was so encouraging and supportive. So I just want you to know that about Steven Spielberg and the people that he works with. They are not only nice, they're kind, they're wonderful people. And Jenny and all of us miss them. We miss seeing them every day.
There's a lot of interesting things in that video, right? Let's start with the big obvious one, which is the fact that she keeps pushing how kind these people are. Now, I think that's obviously because given that they're from Hollywood, the Baal worshippers knew that they were around actual religious people and had to be on their best behavior. I'm kidding. Okay, that was a joke, potentially a bad one. I think that's actually nice to hear, to be honest. It's nice to hear that, you know, everyone who isn't in upper circles and upper rings of society in Hollywood aren't just like gatekeeping dicks. So I think that was really nice to hear from her. But the main thing that's interesting about this is that a movie that is meant to be about disclosure, about the revelation of UFOs and aliens being real, which, again, if you don't live under a rock, you probably knew that. But many people do live under rocks, actually. We have a lot of Patrick Stars in our society. Far too many, in fact. And these people would be probably pretty shocked to realize that religion has a lot to do with disclosure. Probably because disclosure in itself will... I don't know if it's going to change religion, but it's certainly going to make people see it differently. I don't know if the actual religion itself will change, but I think people are going to start looking at it a little bit differently. And to be kind of timely with what we're talking about here, this is what I messed up earlier. Anna Paulina Luna. Now, this tweet isn't new, but obviously she was on Joe Rogan this week talking UFOs, suspiciously sexy, etc., etc. She said you won't want to miss it, and she's basically referring to the movie that's coming out. It's it's interesting coming from her for a few things. One is that she is pretty like, I don't know what you would call her. Actually, I wish I still had the clip. I saw a clip of Georgiani saying that she's like an evangelical Christian. There's like things that like she's actually Jewish. I don't know. I'm just telling you things that I've heard. I don't know what's true. Who knows what's actually true? But what we can say for sure is that she does put out some very interesting tweets, like tweeting about like the stars of Orion and the pyramids and angels and shit like that. Like her belief systems are very esoteric. I think like to just try and put a vague stamp over like where she's at mentally is like somewhere in the realm of like interdimensional esotericism, which is interesting for someone who's apparently leading the UAP task force, or we could say leading disclosure from the government's perspective. Whether it's actually legit or just some kind of like dog and pony show, who actually knows? But it is interesting. She said on Joe that she was raised Catholic and Jew, but is a Christian now. Far out. Why don't you go join Islam as well and collect Hinduism while you're at it? She's got the collecting autism that I've got, but she's just got it for religions. Meanwhile, I have Pokemon plushies and shit like that. But that's okay. We all have our own interests. She sounds like a weirdo. She definitely does sound like a weirdo. Spielberg is the Psy-Op godfather. Well, Thomas, it is interesting that we've actually got a little interview clip of Spielberg to play. But it's interesting that Spielberg has been, we'll say accused. That sounds a bit intense, but he's been accused of having inside info, access to inside info. Obviously, he did Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where in 2025, we seem to be getting a few different stories. A big one being the Nazca mummies that kind of look exactly like the aliens in Close Encounters in the Third Kind. But don't worry, though. It's coincidence 7,619. Just like the rest of them. And you're a conspiracy theorist if you entertain it any further than that. Okay? Just remember that. Go to school and listen and don't ask questions. Spielberg's mum used to get his movies noticed by rabbis. Spielberg's mum used to get his movies noticed. What do you mean by that, Johnny? What do you mean like Spielberg's mum would go to rabbis and be like, look at the movie my son made. His name's Steven Spielberg. You've probably never heard of him. Is that what you're trying to say? Does anyone watch Morgue Official and does it make you feel any particular way? Never heard of it, Sammy, unfortunately. But that's definitely a me thing. That's probably the answer you'll get when you ask me if I've seen basically anything other than Game of Thrones or Harry Potter. Or any of the movies we've been watching in Movie Night in Discord. But I very much like to stick to what I know. How many of you know the Persian or the African mythology? I would tell me more. Tell me more, because I mean, Africa's a whole continent. I'm sure there's a lot to that mythology, and Persia is what Persia is. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rashid, but Persia is essentially modern day Iran, is it not? Which I believe is where Zoroastrianism is from. Is that what you mean by Persian mythology, Zoroastrianism? Voodoo, Credo Mutwa. Yeah, so Credo Mutwa is an African Zulu shaman. His interview with Ike, which is on the list, the ever-growing list of things for us to watch together, which we will do soon. But again, I know that Credo Mutwa, he is a Zulu shaman. His mythology and his creation story is not, he's not really speaking for the entirety of Africa. It's kind of like when I spoke about the Aboriginals and the mobs from the North Kimberley region, speaking about the Wandjina, that is their belief system. But if you go to like South Australia, they're not going to call them the Wandjina. They might have stories about the same thing, but it's going to have a different name. It's going to have a different lens. Polarity, have you ever listened to Mr. Traumatic or heard of his music? Solo Tribesman, that is a very random thing to say, bro, but yes. Yes, I do like Mr. Traumatic and I do like drum and bass, but very off topic of you, sir, but thank you. Credo Mutua was Ike's mentor. Okay, how do you know that? That's interesting. I mean, I know that they obviously had a relationship. Not like that. Not like that. They were just friends. But to say that he was his mentor is interesting because I have always wondered where David Icke gets a lot of his information from. And from what I've gathered, he kind of says it's due to some sort of... I think actually ayahuasca. He had like a hectic ayahuasca experience, didn't he? I don't know. It's probably more than one thing. Steven Spielberg also made Bridget Macron movie called E.T. Oh, shit. Okay. All right. Is this what we're doing on a Sunday? The erotic thriller? Yep. Yep. I've got that written down here. Just for research and science. Artificial Intelligence by Spielberg is a great movie. I've heard that. I have heard that, and that is also on the list that I want to watch. Because I do think Spielberg had inside information, and I think anyone who isn't afraid to think outside of the paradigm that your mind is shoved into from the day that you're born can probably see that when they watch Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which was released in the 70s, and you see all of these weird crates that say TRW and like Lockheed Martin, and then like the aliens look exactly like these Nazca mummies that we've found. Like, if you think everything is a coincidence, you're retarded. I'm sorry, but you're retarded. Credo Spike about the pinky icals and reptiles, but natives also call them the ant people. Oh, yeah, okay. Credo spoke about the pinky. Right, okay. I thought you were losing your mind for a moment, Rashid. Icals and reptiles, natives call them ant people. Yeah, a lot of the natives, especially in Mesoamerica, refer to the ant people, which is extremely interesting because I think when you look at a gray, they almost kind of look like if someone didn't know what an alien was, a gray, and said, draw me a humanoid ant person, I would say it would look something pretty similar to a gray. So the fact that there are these like native tribes in Brazil, in America, and around that talk about ant people, I think that's weird. I think there's something to that, personally. Let's take a look at this clip here from Steven Spielberg. This is him. This is not recently, but it's since this movie's been announced. It's pretty interesting. Whoa, that's crazy. Steven Spielberg, a guy who is a movie director, just happens to be conveniently suggesting the same hypothesis as people who are writing papers about this stuff from Harvard talking about extraterrestrial and interdimensional beings. Do people actually think that this guy just is like guessing? Because if you do, you're retarded. That's a very detailed description for just a guess. He's saying that these people could be anthropologists from the future. That's a pretty out there guess, bro. Sounds like you might know something, or it sounds like you've at the very least had people in interesting places maybe whisper something in your ear. Maybe not all of it, but enough to like have a bit of an idea of what's going on. This is clearly someone who knows something.
The helpful part about that to me is that...
Was that a laugh track? The hell was that? Sorry. Because I didn't hear anything funny. Unless I was just zoned out. But like, why was there a laugh track just then? Did he just like... He was just speaking in such absolutes then. He was like, yeah, it's crazy that they haven't burned our whole planet down yet. If there is anything happening, of course, because I don't know anything, because I'm just a movie director, and I swear to God I haven't been read into anything. This is all just a hype has been told. No, look, I'll try to stop joking for a sec. I think this... I don't think this guy knows everything. Like, to be clear, I know I'm taking the piss a lot, but I don't think Steven Spielberg, like, knows all the secrets. But I feel like he's definitely probably been maybe shown some things and told some things to have, like, a high level of conviction on what's going on. and potentially maybe seen like some photos or something, because like I said, Close Encounters of the Third Kind look identical to the Nazca mummy. He's talking about the people who told him all the secrets, clearly. I mean, how else would he know, right? I'm not talking about, the people who know all the secrets who have told me, but I'm just a movie director. Come on. John Anthony, you legend. He's donated $20. Didn't even leave a message. That is just an altruistic legend. And for that, though, we will feed the dog. We will absolutely feed the dog on full screen. Suki, come here. Nice. Nice. Good girl. They never enjoy it. They never take their time. Just inhales it and waits for the next one. Big Joe put in $5 with a hype sticker. My man, Big Joe, thank you very much. And Achy Balls, I feel you, brother, says this movie by Steven Schwinkterberg is such a conditioning piece. The arrogance of this prick. Some will survive. We're okay. Everyone else isn't. I appreciate that, sir. The Schwinkterberg caught me off guard, but I respect it. Yeah, some will survive. We're okay. A lot of people say that, like, if there is going to be some kind of purification of the land, if there's going to be some 2027, some cataclysm that we're apparently overdue for because they're cyclical, that all the elites know about it and they all have their own bunkers. That's why there's deep underground military bases everywhere. That's why Lou Elizondo lives in remote Wyoming and has a bunker. Like, there are people that are allowed to know and people who aren't. And a lot of people get caught up on that and think like, we're all doomed. The world's going to end and the elite are going to be safe and they're going to restart a new society. And while I don't think, like, you could be right for sure. But if something like that happens, okay, like if I'm going to allow myself to believe in a 2027 or in a cataclysm that is going to restart society into a new age, then I feel like I have to believe, well, I don't have to, I can do whatever I want, but I feel like I'm also going to believe that there is some, how do I say this? Some people in the chat are saying the stream dropped out, the stream's buffering. It looks fine on my end, guys, so it might be a you problem. Maybe just try refreshing it. Okay, sorry, back to what I was saying. If there's going to be some kind of flood event, right? Some kind of wipeout of civilization to start again. Well, if we look at history and we look at the stories in religion, in the Bible, there are, Noah's Ark. There are people or things that have came and collected people to survive, right? Now, obviously, yes, not everyone's going to survive. Not everyone's going to make it. But if we are to believe that this is like an interdimensional spiritual world, which it seems like it is, and that all that really matters is good and evil, I think that if you're the elite building a doomsday bunker and you're the same elite who likes to worship Baal and perform satanic ritual abuse on children, if this is a spiritual world where something is going to come down and collect people to restart society after a cataclysm, if they pick up the Baal worshippers and not me, then I'm okay with not coming back. Okay? I'll just say that because I think if we're going to be optimists, which we absolutely should, if that happens, I think I'm good because I'm a good person. And I think you guys are all good people too. And, being a good person doesn't mean being perfect. It just means, like, at the end of the day, like, who are you? Strip away your ego, strip away all your bullshit. Like, who are you here? That's what actually matters. You don't have to go to church every Sunday. You don't have to drink the red wine and eat the weird crusty bread, which is low-key. Like, what are we doing here? Pretending that we're cannibals? Because that sounds like Baal worship. But at the end of the day, I think if you're a good person, don't ruin your present moment by thinking the world is going to end. Because if that happens and you're not a Baal worshipping psycho, I think you'll be okay. That's just my opinion. Maybe I'm naive. Maybe I'm gaslighting myself, but it makes me feel better. So you should try it too. Just gaslight yourself. It's really good. It can solve a lot of your problems. BT with $10 says, yo, be aware of the narrative of upcoming alien invasion. Real ETs are on our side and don't want us to suffer. The narrative has started. Don't buy into it. I like that. I like that. I think if there are bad ETs, there must be good ones too, for sure. I also think that if this whole fake invasion thing is real, which it might be, 3i Atlas could be the beginning of it. If all of this stuff is real, the only thing, I think the most important thing, actually, if this really tries to happen and they try to fake an alien invasion, it's going to be done through mainstream media and probably through podcasts, but it will be done through podcasts because people on the podcast are buying into the fear, okay? All I would recommend, and this could be hard, this is easier said than done for sure, is don't let someone else tell you to be scared about something. Like, if someone's saying there's all these aliens coming and they're going to attack us, don't be scared until, one, you actually see them, or two, you actually have a negative experience with them. If it even happens at all, because we're talking about wild shit. But what I'm saying is, don't let fucking CNN tell you that this is an evil alien invasion, because CNN have also, and every other mainstream outlet have also said a lot of bullshit that was wrong over basically their entire history. And they also have a lot of big companies who own every other company, like umbrella, massive mega money in their pockets. So they're obviously going to be saying things that benefit those companies. So, as always, use your own brain, make up your own mind. Don't let a news station tell you should be scared about something that you've never even seen yourself. Because, fear is just the thief of, living in the moment. If you're worrying about the future, you're not in the now. And that's just going to, if you're stuck in that state, like I'm sure many of you know, people who sit in front of the TV all day watching Sky News, just getting angry about bullshit, that if they turned it off, would realize that none of that is actually part of their waking reality. They don't see any of that. They don't experience that, but they're glued to the TV, living in this state of fear and anxiety about something that's is not even relevant to their direct life and is maybe not even happened yet. And they're ruining their present moment with it. It's fucking wild. Don't be an NPC. Please, I beg you. Dan Garden, $5. The elite are scared because they are evil. That's why they hide in their large bunkers and their little dicks. Okay, I like that. A stray bullet, Dan, but okay, we can rock with that because they're overcompensating. Yep, definitely small dicks and overcompensating with their big bunkers. And I like that train of thought. The elites are building bunkers because they are the ones that have something to fear. Oh, Dan Garden, my man. He's just, I love it. I love it, Dan. You are the man. The elites are building bunkers because they are the ones that have something to worry about. People like us who just get cucked by being born into a bullshit system of climbing a corporate ladder, we're the ones that are going to be ontologically relieved. Remember that term? We always hear ontological shock, and Jake Barber said it should be ontological relief. I think we're going to get the ontological relief and be like, thank fuck. I don't have to work for the Baal worshippers anymore. Finally. I appreciate that, Dan. You're a legend. Thank you, bro. The Romans preferred small ones. That they did. That they did, Waruna. Should have been a Roman. God damn it. Couldn't have thought of a more perfect way to word it. Absolutely. Absolutely. Another $5 from BT says, if it's actually a thing, how would they know that 3i Atlas is malevolent anyway? Shit's weird, y'all. It makes no sense. 100%, dude. That's what I mean. That's what I mean. They've already given us this example, right? There is a rock millions of light years away that we don't even know what it is, And like, what was it? Like the New York Post has said like alien invasion on its way. Like, hey, bro, how about you just fucking relax for a second? It's a giant rock. It might be interesting, but we literally don't even know what it is. And you're telling me it's an alien invasion? Like, just, do yourself a favor and just turn that shit off and never, ever watch it again. Ever. Get your news from independent sources, okay? And, like, what I will say is the thing about independent sources, and I guess I'll throw myself in this category, is that independent sources might not always get it right. Okay, depending on who they are. You know, I don't have like amazing connections, but what's important is you know that like an independent source doesn't have big pharma in their pocket, doesn't have the military industrial complex in their pocket telling them what they can and can't say. So even if a independent source gets something wrong, you know that at least their intentions were good. They're not trying to trick you. They're not trying to deceive you. They're not trying to fuck with your mind. You know what I mean? Like where you place your mind and your attention is so important. And when you're giving it to people who don't have your best interests at heart, you're literally just like sadistic. You're like just hurting yourself on purpose, but you think you're like doing a good thing. That's them. That's the Baal worshippers for you, bro. That's their style. It is literally their style. And that's crazy. Heru says for $5, I believe the Putin POTUS meeting was about the planning for an upcoming UFO disclosure, not a ceasefire. I saw very short clips of that, and I've seen people making comments on it. But I don't really know enough about it. I think, I mean, I can't, maybe I'll save that one for an After Dark. There are some things that I'll say on here, but then sometimes I get a bit, you know, I don't know who's watching. If you don't, After Dark is a podcast I do just for the members. And I'm probably due to do one soon. So maybe we'll pull those clips up on After Dark and we'll talk about them soon. So if you're a member, you'll be able to check that out. And we have a lot of new members lately. It's incredible. Rusty gifted a membership. You absolute legend, Rusty. Gifting one membership a stream, it feels like. I appreciate you, man. Thank you very much. Nerd Alert with $10. 100% on mainstream news, bro. How about a snack for Suki? Keep up the great work. Nearly 40K. I know, man. It is absolutely wild. And thank you very much. Let's feed the best girl in the world. Give me a Suki. Yeah, 40K. I honestly don't even know what to say, dude. Someone commented just the other day. Here you go. That was a messy one. There's shit everywhere. Sorry, I need to get some bigger ones. Someone commented the other day on an old members video of mine, and they said, in this video, I was saying if I had 30K by the end of the year, I'd be stoked. Yeah. That's what I mean. Like, I actually don't know what to say. It's wild. It's just wild to me. That I'm probably going to hit like, I don't know, 50K by the end of the year or something. Like, seeming at this rate easily, which is just fucking wild to me. I can't say how grateful I am enough. Like, the words feel stupid when I try to express it because it just doesn't match. Emily with $10 says, love your content, Josh. Your quest for new knowledge. Thanks for taking us along for the ride. My pleasure, Emily. That's the cool thing about UFOs is they look like 35 feet on the outside, but when you step in, there's room for everybody. You're all welcome in here. There's plenty of room. And it's my pleasure. I love piloting this ship. We found our tribe. Absolutely. Absolutely, Yosa. And that was always the goal. You know, I think I've spoken about it before, but I started this channel because this shit is the most interesting shit in the world to me. And I didn't know anybody who was interested in it. So I was like, okay, if I just talk about it on camera, surely someone who's interested in it will come. And here we are, baby. Here we are. It is absolutely crazy. You'll have the plaque on your wall soon. Yeah, Mish, the 100K plaque. You know, I always thought about that when I started this journey, the 100K plaque.
I know you're not going to...
Get out of here. Get out of here, none. You've had your time. I thought about the 100K plaque when I started this journey, and it was kind of like, you know, a pipe dream. And, you know, it's starting to feel a bit more real now. And that's going to be a day. I might even shed a tear. It wouldn't be the first time along this journey. I saw all of this coming for you back in Feb. I knew you were good. First UFO guy I started following. Oh, Yoshi, you're a legend, mate. Thank you very much. Yeah, a lot of you guys have been on this journey with me basically since the early days because, well, I mean, the early days weren't that long ago. They weren't that long ago, really. We're not even a year in. I think it's going to... Well, obviously, I mean, every milestone, I try to do something fun, whether it's like 50K, 100K or whatever. But I think the 1st of November it's the freak off. Okay. 1st of November is our freak off because that is Polarity's first birthday. So we're going to be having a freak off. So get ready. Get ready for it. I'm not going to give any spoilers away, mainly because I haven't planned it yet, but I just know it's going to be a freak off. We're going to have a lot of fun. So let's keep the show moving because the show today actually has to be a little bit shorter because I'm going to be speaking with Michael Phillips on Third Eye Drops. So I'm going to be on his channel soon, which is exciting. And he'll probably be coming on this channel soon too. So I don't know when that'll be, but it'll probably be pretty soon. I'm looking forward to having a chat. He seems like sometimes you meet people in this space and, you have a little bit of a chat with them. And sometimes like pretty quickly you can kind of identify like, who's on your wavelength and who isn't. And I think Michael's a bro. So looking forward to it. Should be a lot of fun. I'm going to be doing that after this, which is why we started a little bit earlier today. Yep. BYO baby oil. Absolutely. I don't have the stockpile that Diddy does, unfortunately. So it will be BYO. All right. So this is Karl Nell. So he's been kind of in the news a little bit this week and not necessarily for this, but what he says here is, I think, very interesting to what we just looked at. It's in the idea that disclosure, whether you like it or not, because I know there is a lot of brain dead Bradleys out there who, when they look, they're very interested in UFOs, but when you start talking about ESP, when you start talking about consciousness and psychics and, extrasensory perception, they just, the ape brain comes out. The ape brain starts, me like UFO. It's fucking crazy. Like, it's wild to me how people in this space are like, oh yeah, we can talk about UFOs. We can talk about these ships that apparently fly with a propulsion system that we don't know, and that these aliens might be coming from a complete other planet with technology we can't even understand. Oh, but extrasensory perception? You're a whack job. You're a conspiracy theorist. I don't want to hear about the woo. Like, bro, who drew that line for you? Because, like, for me, when you realize, like, UFOs are real, and you realize you've been lied to about it for your entire life, I mean, the door is now wide open to me. Like, what the fuck else haven't you been telling me? What else is true that you've been lying to me about? Because I don't think it just stops at UFOs, and this is what Karl Nell is going to talk to us about.
The problem becomes unlearning. And so I would suggest that there's actually like this fifth threshold of evidence, which is what I call the threshold of unlearning, or if you want the unreasonable person standard.
Sorry, is that volume okay? Let me know if the volume is okay, because it looks like it's kind of pumping on my end. But already he's saying quotes that I think are that we need to remember. The problem is unlearning. It's unlearning. Because people, whether they've been alive for 20, 40, 50, 60 years, it's loud. Okay, I'll turn it. I'll put it down a bit. Sorry. And I feel like the older you get, the worse it is, right? If you've been alive for 60 years thinking that drinking beers and watching football is the pinnacle of why we were born here, and now suddenly someone is trying to tell you, no, actually ESP is real and we're being manipulated by an interdimensional intelligence, that's going to be very difficult. Like, I understand that. I completely understand that. So, and like that information won't lay on top of your worldview. It doesn't fit together. So before we can put that layer on there, we actually have to rip up the floorboards. We have to rip up the bullshit, the crap, the paradigm that your mind was shoved into ever since you entered school. And that's difficult. That's difficult. And this is what he's talking about.
Which is what the problem is, which is somebody's got to unlearn what they already know to be able to entertain this topic. But maybe that's actually like an achievable standard in the sense that these podcasts and these discussions and social media and the context in society that's driving the discussion will get people to at least reevaluate what they already think they know. So you're not going to give them proof, but maybe you can help them unlearn things that maybe there isn't enough data to actually weigh in on and get to more of a Epicurus kind of state. So I think this context is important for like this disclosure discussion because again, we're trying to get the government to release some information, right? So in order to get the government to do anything, you've got to kind of mobilize support to the government in the public policy arena. And then, what does disclosure actually look like in terms of people integrating that into their worldview? And how does that relate to this?
Yes, a lot of people are saying deprogramming. That's exactly what needs to happen first. Aaron Peterson says, duh, beer, football, pizza, duh. Yeah, it is like that, unfortunately. But, actually, and Karl actually kind of touches on this a little bit, that it's like that in the West. I mean, it's like that in other places too, but it's very like that in the West. And I can't help but think that that is a conscious decision and that has been done intentionally and that we are like, when you realize that this is a conscious decision at somewhere far up the chain, that's when you start to realize, oh, so you all worship Baal. No, not exactly, but kind of something like that, probably. Aaron chucked in $5 with no message, but I appreciate you, bro. Thank you, Aaron. Maggie with $2. Thank you very much, Maggie. And Paris Diamond celebrating her 3 months. Absolute legend. Says, does Nell hang with Greer? I don't know. I don't keep up to date with the social circles of disclosure. But what I can tell you about Karl Nell, and I think a lot of people forget this about him, is that this guy was... A lot of people say that he was David Grush's boss. I think that's maybe like a bit of a Chinese whispers. I think he worked in a senior position. Perhaps David Grush was a colleague of his and they worked together on some things. I don't think he was a direct boss. I think that's maybe like a bit far. But what's also interesting about Karl Nell is that he held senior positions at Northrop Grumman. Very senior positions at Northrop Grumman and comes from an intelligence background. So, I always really liked listening to Karl Nell. He seems like a very grounded, down-to-earth person with good intentions. And I thought it was a real shame when he, stepped away from disclosure, especially after putting in work like this, like big presentations, slideshows, detailing roadmaps on how we can actually get this information out to the public in a safe way that isn't going to make the ape brain Bradley's mind short circuit when they realize that football isn't actually the pinnacle of society. Breaking news. Daria gifted a membership. Daria, thank you very much. Very kind of you. If you received it, make sure you say thank you. And Makers of the Dead Travel Fast has put in $15 with a little sticker. And you know what? That's worth a Suki treat. We're going to have to open the bag here. For anyone who is concerned about my dog's health, which I know there are many of you because you messaged me about it, these are single ingredient snacks, okay? These are dry frozen duck livers. There's literally just a duck liver. And she ain't complaining about it, trust me. And Trez, welcome, you little freak, you little 4-letter name freak. Thank you very much. Make sure you check out the members' content, my man. And or woman, you could be either. I'm not assuming your gender. It's 2025. Make sure you come check out the Discord as well and join the conversation. All right, let's keep watching this.
So I've got a little bit of Salvador Dali here. So, is space and time kind of fungible here? Well, maybe people's perceptions are, and maybe that's an opportunity and a challenge at the same time. So I was privileged to be on a panel with Diana Polsolka. We attended the...
Trey, my apologies. Thank you very much, Trey.
A conference in Florida, the Hereticon conference that Peter Thiel had set up late last year. And so the premise of this conference was basically everybody was coming out with sort of countercultural things and very out-of-the-box thinking and very sort of avant-garde kind of stuff. But I think we mutually recognized that, like, even though it was called Hereticon, nobody actually, like, specified what the heresies were, right? So we tried to do that in our podcast, or our panel discussion. And in some sense, I would submit, at least in my view, I don't know if Diana shares this, but I think these four heresies that we came up with are really like the eigenvectors of heresies. Like, all the other stuff builds out of this. These are at least intended to be, and you could decide for yourself, sort of fundamental. So the first one was basically, surprise, surprise, non-disclosure of uncomfortable aspects of reality is a universal across all culture and time. Like, UAP is an instance, right? Like, it's just a modern, like, blip. Like, this is like the way it works. Like, go back to ancient Egypt, you had the inner temple and the outer temple, right? Like, the people didn't even get into the temple. But if you were, fortunate enough to be like a priest or, a supplicant, and you could get into the temple, which is where you're going to get, like, instruction, right? Their version of, like, a college. It's stratified. Like, you don't get into the inner temple unless you meet, certain criteria, right? So they're keeping some stuff from the uninitiated. It's sort of the structure of things, right?
Isn't that interesting? All the way back in ancient Egypt, like, almost the same structures are in place that, the regular people they're not allowed into the temple. That's only for the initiated. So you have hidden knowledge. You have occult knowledge. Like this. And, knowledge is power. So you have certain sections of society that are initiated into certain parts of knowledge that relate to the true nature of reality, which means that certain groups aren't allowed to know the truth about the world that they live in, and that this isn't new. This dates back to, again, ancient Egypt with the temples. But it also, like Nell said, relates to UAP, and that a UAP is just an instance of this. It's like, it's not all about UAP. That's just one part of it.
I mean, if you want to look at, let's say, more modern example, like COVID, like lab leak theory, right? Like, did that happen? Didn't it? Was the government really honest about that, right?
Oh, all right, Karl. Karl sounds like a bit of a weirdo. I reckon we should get Nell on a stream.
So this occurs because aspects of reality threaten sort of the organization of society or the power structure of society. So when we think about, Condon Committee evaluating the work of Blue Book, and Ed Condon basically writing the conclusions of the study before the study was done and bragging about that publicly. This is back in 1968, 1969. And then having defection of all the scholars at the University of Colorado that were working on the study, and then seeing the study published and the data and cases in the study don't match the conclusions, but the study still was used to close Project Blue Book and end the government's investigation into this topic. There's like plenty of evidence that there is like the desire to obfuscate certain topics, right? So I think that's pretty much fundamental, and we've got to put this problem in the context of that being fundamental across all human societies and all civilizations across all time.
And isn't that wild? Like, he's basically saying that this idea that sections of society have not been included into certain parts of knowledge that explain the true nature of reality. This dates back to ancient Egypt with the temples and whatnot, and I'm sure potentially even earlier. So what we're talking about here in terms of disclosure and allowing the masses to understand the true nature of reality, this isn't like some 21st century little hiccup that we've got into. It's like trying to restructure the way things have been for basically ever, which makes you kind of like, oh, so that's why disclosure is so complicated. Because this isn't just a new thing. We're trying to like rip up the carpet of like thousands of years of history.
So then there's this idea of NHI exists and the reality of hierarchy of being. So I talked about why NHI exists, but this hierarchy is actually fundamental to every religious tradition, right? There's not a single religious tradition that doesn't say that there's a higher power, right? And this even traces back to shamanism, which is the most earliest form of religious or metaphysical engagement, and it occurs in every culture from the very beginning.
I love that he referenced like shamanism. I really do, especially because for those of you who were here in the last stream, when we looked at the Brazilian tribes who didn't know what an alien was when they were asked, but they were shown that picture of them, and they said, that's the Mankanawabu, like so matter of fact, like, oh yeah, the Mankanawabu, haven't seen a picture of them in a while. They also said that if you mess with the Mankanawabu, they can take your spirit underground and you need a shaman to cleanse them or to fix them. Sounds an awful lot like an exorcist or a priest that is trying to help someone who's been possessed or has been overcome by a dark force. Super interesting.
You know, cave art from the Paleolithic, 15,000, 30,000 years ago, is clearly considered to have religious connotation. So all people, all cultures, all times have already believed in this hierarchy of being. And today we talk about creating, artificial general intelligence. So, is that going to be smarter than us, better than us, worse than us? Where does that fall? You've got this hierarchy. You've got the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom. And then if you've got another civilization, which I'm suggesting is the case, is that going to be exactly co-equal to us? What if it's been around 100,000 years longer than we have? What if it's been around 1 million years longer than we have? What if it's been around 2 billion years longer than we have, which there's time for?
Sorry, can we just put a little highlighter over the fact that Karl Nell just said, what if there's another civilization, which I'm suggesting there is? This is the guy who works in army intelligence with the NRO and high places in Northrop Grumman is saying, what if there is another civilization? And I am suggesting that there is. What else do you want? Rashid says, according to Persian mythology, other beings lived in Earth before the emergence of jinn or man. They were known as Prims, Jim, and Jan. Iblis is one of them, the infernal ones. Yeah, I think a lot of these creation stories talk about these powerful beings that were here before man, or maybe even created man, or had a part in creating man. But they've all got a different name for it. It's all relayed through a different cultural lens, a different framework. And after all these thousands of years, people don't seem to realize that they're all talking about the same thing with just different names because they're from different cultures. Look, I don't know that for sure, but it seems pretty like the logical answer to me.
So, how does that fit in? Are they more capable in some way? So there's a certain reticence to want to accept this in the first world rationalist, modern civilizations, because essentially we've put our civilization and humankind at the top of the pyramid. Yeah, there's a hierarchy, sure, but we're at the top. Sort of secular rationalism.
Wrong.
So it's very injurious to a complete understanding of probably how reality works, right? So the second, third world developing nations don't have this problem. Indigenous cultures don't have this problem. The medieval era didn't have this problem. But only like the secular West really has this problem. And I would submit it's a huge impediment, and it's part of the context for why this problem remains.
Why is that? Why does the secular West seem to be the only ones that have this problem? Why is that? Kind of weird. Surely we're not the bad guys. Surely we wouldn't enslave our own people and trick them into thinking they're free and telling them that chasing a corporate career job and getting a mortgage and being in debt for your whole life is the best thing you could do. Surely we wouldn't do that. Because that sounds kind of evil. We're not evil, right?
People can't engage with this because it threatens their worldview. So then, this is totally central to Diana's work. Cosmism was a motivating factor in both the U.S. and USSR space programs. And so why is that relevant? Well, you could argue really that those programs drove like the scientific enterprise that has created the world that we're living in. So the basis tech, you know, we also say space program tech, space age tech, like, I mean, that was a long, long time ago. But really, we still kind of view our society as being, you know, accelerated out of that. You know, so the Jack Parsons of the world, Tchaikovskys and Soviet Union, they really were driven by like an esoteric view. And I would submit then, therefore, that esotericism actually drives scientific advancement. It's like the antithesis of what most people believe. Like
That's crazy what Karl Nell just said. The guy from the NRO, the guy in military intelligence, the guy in high places in Northrop Grumman just said esotericism drives scientific innovation. I think he said innovation. Is that the word he said? We'll rewind it anyway because I think that's worth hearing again. And he also referenced Jack Parsons and Tchaikovsky as well. So like that's the father of America's rocket program, the father of Russia's rocket program. Both were doing their own versions of rituals and thinking that they were speaking with either angels or like a non-human intelligence, and they credit that non-human intelligence for their advancement in rocketry. This is like the early 20th century. These people, and Germany as well. Okay, I've talked about that in the channel before. Hermann Oberth, father of Germany's rocket program, before Werner von Braun, said, "We cannot take the full credit for our advancements because we have been helped, and we have been helped by the people of other worlds." That is a quote from the German's father of rocketry. And you've got America and Russia also doing their own version of rituals. Jack Parsons out in the desert with Aleister Crowley, doing some weird shit. Probably a bit too graphic to say. Sex magic. We'll say sex magic. And they also attribute their advancements and knowledge to a non-human intelligence that they were in contact with. And I'll continue playing in a second. Tim Taylor, the elusive figure that Diana Pasulka writes about, he himself says that, this is the NASA Dragon launch operator who apparently has dog tags for CIA, NRO, everything, says that he himself has his own protocols, which is more like lifestyle, like diet, meditation, yoga, that he is also able to connect with a non-human intelligence and receive downloads, and the information that he has received through these downloads is then put into practice, and he is making companies that are extremely successful, or inventions, patented technology based on the things he's receiving from a non-human intelligence, okay? And Karl Nell is telling us, well,
really, we still kind of view our society as being, accelerated out of that. So the Jack Parsons of the world, Tchaikovskys and Soviet Union, they really were driven by like an esoteric view. And I would submit then, therefore, that esotericism actually drives scientific advancement. It's like the antithesis of what most people believe. Like it's like, mysticism is the adversary of science. Like the esoteric tradition actually drives it.
Isn't that just wild to hear? This is just like, my God. People need to understand this. People really need to understand this and get it through your head quickly so we can get on with things. Please, do us a favor. Stevie has chucked in $8 and said, Deutschland mentioned, where is the full video? Need to watch after. Great show, Josh. Stevie, my man. How was the rave, brother? How was it? I did say, come and pick me up. You never came, but that's okay. I hope you had a good night, to be honest. I've probably been to enough DEF CONs that I can't really remember what I had for breakfast anymore. So it's probably for the best for everyone that I didn't go. But I appreciate the $8, man. Thank you. And I hope you had a good time on the weekend as well.
So I think it's very important to maybe understand that. And then this idea of consciousness playing a role in both physics and metaphysics. And what I mean by that, I would submit that it's sort of the work by Hammeroff and Penrose on the orchestrated objective reduction idea of how consciousness really works is moving us toward an actual physics-based theory of consciousness. I'm a big, opponent, if you will, of the strong form of the Church-Turing thesis, right? So, everybody knows Alan Turing, famous British computer scientist, came up with the formalism for the Turing machine, which is the basis for the theoretical foundation for computability. Alonzo Church was his graduate advisor. He was actually an American logistician. And so everybody was trying to figure out this concept of computability. And you had Kurt Gödel weighing in. He had like the System S kind of framework. You had Cantor with lambda calculus. You had Turing. Ultimately, Church threw in with his graduate student and said, okay, I'll accept that the Turing machine formalism is equivalent to the set of computable functions. This is almost like it's a tautology. It's a definition. It's called the Church-Turing thesis. And so people wanted to expand on that thesis. And so they came up with a strong form. They wanted to expand it to random and human theoretic kind of computation. And in the logic, there's a lot of ways to kind of frame this, and a lot of people are familiar with this, but I'll run through it quickly. The idea was that if I can express myself in a natural language, like we're doing right now, English.
This bit's really good. This is the last little bit from Karl Nell here, and then we'll move on to the last story. Michael Phillips, welcome, bro. Thank you for being here. Michael is definitely a weirdo like us. Absolutely. Weirdos, it doesn't take long. It doesn't take long to, know one when you see one, for sure.
And English can be related to a mathematical formal system, with rules of grammar. So, if I'm, breaking the rules of grammar, you tell me, right? We've got a consensus reality on that. Then, in some sense, I could program that into a computer because it's a formal system, and that creates some sort of equivalence between anything I can think of and what I can program in the computer. So that's essentially the strong form of the Church-Turing thesis, which is the intellectual foundation for general purpose AI. And you're like, okay, why would you disagree with that? It makes sense, right? But I would submit, in common conversation, in literature, in poetry, we're always breaking the rules of grammar. The idioms, contractions, colloquialism, slang, incorrect grammar in poetry. We're breaking out of the formal system because we can't communicate what we want to communicate. We're changing the rules. We're breaking the box. We're basically constrained by Gödel completeness, but we're basically going around that by reframing the formal system.
So it's what he's explaining here is the fact that the framework that our knowledge set is built upon doesn't include the ideas and themes that come with disclosure. So again, it kind of goes back to the deprogramming thing. You can't just give disclosure because it's going to break the framework that most people who admittedly live under a rock have been brought up with, right? So, we need to kind of create a new language. We need to reshape the language first before we can actually communicate what we're saying. Otherwise, it's just not going to work and it's not going to land. And as I said, this isn't just a 20th or 21st century problem. Karl Nell said that if you go back to ancient Egypt, only certain people were allowed into the temples. This whole idea of occult knowledge, which pertains to the true nature of reality, goes back a long way. So far back that to reveal it to the uninitiated would be like a ontological nuclear bomb. It would fry some people's brains, I think. So I think what he's talking about here is really important. I thought it was, and I guess I should be clear on I actually brought this clip in for a reason, and that is because of this, because of the whole Steven Spielberg thing, and that his movie was being filmed at a religious church or whatever. Okay, so there is going to be themes of the supernatural, of spirituality, of interdimensional intelligences and forces potentially manipulating or, you know, working with us. And I think people need to get used to that, and they need to start ripping up their floor and preparing their mind and to having to relearn a new framework to look at reality with, because the one you currently have, the one where you think football is the pinnacle of society and drinking beers is the coolest thing you can do every weekend, that ain't going to work anymore, bro. That ain't going to work. And if you want to stick with that, well, I don't know. You'll be like, if you stick with that, in like 2,000 years, you'll be in a zoo, and people who have built a new framework will be in looking at you, watching you watch football and drink beer and stuff, and be like, damn, look at those monkeys. They're fucking cooked. Stephen Knight with £10 says, watching in the UK, love the show. First time I've commented, keep up the good work. Thank you very much, Stephen. I appreciate that. Support goes a long way. And actually, for £10, because, you know, if you don't know, £10 in Australia is like $4,000. So that's definitely worth a treat for the girl. Limpens, Texas put in 40 Swedish krona. Thank you very much. And £5 from Monkey Sausage. How's it going? It's going good, bro. How are you, Mr. Sausage? All right, there we go. The girl is fed. Formalities are done. We've got about 20 minutes left of the show. So let's finish off with... I swear I'll find it. It's okay. I'm not panicking. Here we go. So, this is crazy, okay? A plane has gone missing, right? Did you know about it? Probably not, because I didn't either until today, and this is 2 weeks ago. Now, obviously, a plane disappearing out of the sky sounds a little familiar, but there's even more to it that's interesting. So, this is what the story says. This is on ABC, you know, which is a bit of a rag, but this is who printed it. It's been a week since Gregory Vaughan and Kim Warner and their dog disappeared in a light plane. Okay. It was a mild day on the northern Tasmanian coast when a couple and their dog climbed into a small green aeroplane and flew away. Alarm sounded when pilot Gregory Vaughan and his partner Kim Warner and their dog Molly failed to arrive at their destination in central New South Wales 4 hours later. Despite an extensive search across the Bass Strait and nearby islands, there has been no trace of the missing trio or their plane since the Saturday flight a week ago. It has left many questioning how in 2025 an aircraft and its occupants can simply disappear. You know, I know a story that happened about 10 years ago, and people are still wondering how an entire passenger jet with 200 plus people on it can disappear without a trace. And what's interesting about this story is that where this happened, actually, I can maybe pull something up here. Where this happened, a plane has disappeared before. I always try to keep talking when I'm pulling shit up, and I'm so bad at it. I just cannot do it. I just can't. I can't do it. But I know I have a little something here. Yep, here it is. Here it is. He's quick with it. He's quick with it. You got to give him that. He can't talk while he does things, but he's quick with it. So this is the newspaper article of Frederick Valentich. Okay, this is in 1970. I'm going to say 6, or it could be 78. Let's say, wait, there it is. 78. 1978. From the Bass Strait, 21-year-old pilot took off, was meant to land on like a small island before Tasmania, and didn't. Or either he did, and on the way back, there is an audio recording, which you can just, if you just search Frederick Valentich audio, you can hear the audio of this 21-year-old pilot talking to the air traffic control tower, and he's basically saying, I can see an object. Are there any known objects in the vicinity? Air traffic control is going, no, I've got nothing. And he's going, what about military? Is it like a military vehicle? They're going, no. And he's like, well, there is a really big thing that I can't explain. And then he's like, wait, now it's disappeared. And then he's like, now it's on top of me. Now it's following me. He's like, it's playing a game with me. And there is this back and forth with a lot of empty audio and a lot of weird like distortion in it. And then Frederick Valentich and his plane have never been found. This was in 1978. And this person is still technically a missing person today. And this story here that we're looking at happened in the same place. And it's not the same plane, but it's a very similar light Cessna type operation going on. What do we know? Last Saturday at 12:45 p.m., Mr. Vaughn and Miss Warner departed from Georgetown Airport about an hour north of their home in Deloraine in a two-seater Bristol SLSA plane purchased a few months earlier. They were due to make a fuel stop in regional Victoria before continuing to Hillston in New South Wales, west of Condobolin. Classic weird Australian name. So there you go. There's the map, and I think can you guys see my mouse? No, you can't. That's annoying. If you can see where it says Melbourne, and then if you go down to the ocean, you can see it says Bass Strait, just barely. To the left of Bass Strait is the island that I believe Frederick Valentich was flying to when his plane disappeared. And you can see that this has happened between the waters of Tasmania and Victoria. And so, that's interesting. The fact that it's a plane disappearing without a trace, a plane disappearing without a trace is a wild story regardless, right? Like, that's crazy. We're in 2025. You've got satellites that can watch me pick my nose and eat it, but you can't find a whole plane? You can hear a submarine imploding on itself with a guy controlling it with a PS4 controller, but you can't find a plane? That's weird, dude. That's kind of weird. So maybe they can, but it involves 3 orbs teleporting it to another dimension. And they don't want to tell you about that, so it's just far easier to deny. Kind of like when I hacked my friend's RuneScape account in high school and he knew it was me and I just denied it for the rest of my life and I've still never admitted it to him. But it was me. I was the one who took the gold. Yep. It was me. But that's the whole thing. When you just deny and you know that these people don't have evidence, what are you going to do? What are you actually going to do? Like, if the government just denies, what are you going to do about it? Cry? Start a revolution? Maybe. That could work. I don't know what else. What other options we got? The Bass Strait has a rep. Yeah, it does. So does the Bermuda Triangle. And what's interesting is that where MH370 disappeared was the direct opposite, if you look at the globe, to the Bermuda Triangle. And I've heard things about, I can't remember what the term was, but there is a word for it, about like the opposites. It's not poles. Something about it was interesting. The Dragon Triangle. Thank you, Naya. It's another place that is of interest. Josh is gonna know now. No, I'm sure that person would not be watching this YouTube channel. If you are, I apologize. I'm doing quite well for myself on RuneScape now, so if you would like the reimbursement minus inflation, meet me at GE. I'll hook you up. I'm sorry. We all look back at our teens and there's probably things we all regret, right? There's probably things that we all regret. There's definitely things I regret. Yep. But hey, that's part of learning, right? You have to hack your friends to realize that that's actually dick behavior. That's how you learn. It's how I learn anyway. Finally, RuneScape disclosure. Yep. I'm going to start playing RuneScape on Twitch soon, I promise. Okay, so look, we've got 10 minutes left. We've got through the stories. Let's just hang out for 10 minutes and I'll fill you guys in on a little bit of stuff that's going on. So yes, we are approaching 40K. It's absolutely wild, beyond my wildest dreams, to be honest, at this point. Which means like I said, I like to try and do something special every time I hit a milestone. And I said the other day that when I hit 40K, I'll have the merch store released. I said, people have been saying do some merch. I've been working on it. It's not easy. But I'm pretty much there. But I just need to kind of finalize it. But I feel like I'm probably going to maybe hit 40K before that's done. But whenever I hit 40K, I will plan like a celebration stream. And I will try and make it so, this is what I want to do. I want to make it so when I have a celebration stream, the hot tub stream, look, we'll save the hot tub for 100K, Krista. Hot tub at 100K, I promise. When we do the 40K stream, I will release the merch store for everyone to go. However, if you're a member, I will give you access to the merch store a day before, or maybe 2 days before, if it's ready. But to do that, you probably need to be in Discord. So if you really are like, if you're a member and you're really looking forward to merch, make sure you're in Discord too. I know most of you guys are, but yeah, that's how I'll do that. Do you actually have a hot tub? No, I don't. I would be buying a blow-up pool and would be doing it in this room here. It'd be very tacky. Trust me, this isn't going to be like sexy. It's going to be horrible. It's going to be horrible. Oh, hey, Hyde's put in $10, says a treat for Suki and penance for being late to church. I appreciate you, Heidi. Thank you very much. And €2 from a random dude. Last one for Suki. Look, Suki gets fed on yellow super chats and above only, and that is just a health concern. However, random dude, Heidi has also just chucked in $10 before you. So you know what? We'll call it $12, and this will be one for the both of you. I'm going to feed her the scraps here because I need to get rid of these. Reality is a Psy-Op merch. Yes, we do have a t-shirt coming that says Reality is a Psy-Op. Designed with the help of one of my legendary mods, by the way. Shout out to Serpenter. Always helping me with his creative... I'm going to have to feed her like a bird here. Look. Oh, wow. She really took all of that in one. There was so many... Now my hand is full of slobber. Yeah. Yes, so shout out to Serp. We've got Reality as a Psy-Op merch coming. I really wanted to make a t-shirt that said politics are fake and gay. I still might. But like, is that too much for some people? Like, would you actually wear that? Would you actually wear that? Do you have the balls to wear that? Are you weirdo enough to wear to wear politics are fake and gay merch? Because I'll print it. I will print it. I would wear it. Yep. Do it. Yes. Cat says no. You're soft, Cat. Nope. Yes, I would wear it. Okay. We've got a bit of a we've got a bit of a mixed bag here, but that's okay. That's okay. Michael says, I'm not over the fact that you didn't goof on that wording from the old newspaper. Let me see, Michael. I actually missed it because I have looked at this in it before. Here we go. It's a long shape coming for me. Oh, God. Is Rambro in the chat? Is Rambro in the chat? Because I'm disappointed Rambro didn't pick up on that. Because I didn't really pull this up with the intention to read it, so I didn't look at it. But I know if Rambro's in the chat, I'm sure he would have said something. A long shape coming for me right now, hovering on top of me. Yep. I think I've seen that movie before, actually. Long shape hovering over me, coming for me. I've definitely seen that movie. Yep. It's the back end of the show, that's for sure. Yep, and the views are dipping. Yep, it's okay. That's what happens when you stay this long in a Polarity show. What a way to go. Absolutely. You know, maybe Frederick went out a happy man. Maybe Frederick went out a happy man. Who knows? Rocket Randall Hood with $10 says, show us your nipples for the 40K milestone. Look, I think I'm going to have to push that one back a little bit. I'll have to put that one back a little bit. Nipples, maybe. That might just have to come with the hot tub stream. I'm sorry. I respect the $10 though. I really do. Thank you very much. I think 40K is a nice little treat for the what am I saying? I think the merch is a nice little treat for the 40K. And then I don't know, because the thing is, like, I don't want to do something crazy every 10K, right? You know, you're gonna run out of ideas eventually. But I feel like 50K is a big one, 100K is a big one. So they will be big ones. But still on the little ones, I try to at least do something. Can't use gay in a demeaning manner. You're out of touch. I think I can. I think I can use it in a demeaning manner. Because to me, like when I say gay, I'm not thinking about homosexuals. Like I think the word has kind of grown beyond that now. So maybe I would even say you are out of touch, James. I don't know. Maybe I would turn that one back on you, my man, and say, assuming that gay means homosexual is perhaps out of touch. You are gay yourself. Interesting. And do you feel like when I say politics are fake and gay, do you feel offended? Rocket Randall says, okay, fine, show one nipple for the 40K milestone. Look, there will be no nipples. There will be no nipples at 40K. I'm sorry to break it to you, but I do appreciate the $10. Maybe at 100K. Where are you? James says it's offensive. Well, James, the thing is, what you find offensive is up to you. I can't control that. I don't mean it in an offensive way. So if you choose to be offended by it, I genuinely am sorry. And I know that probably sounds a little bit sarcastic, but I really am, because that's not how I mean it. So it kind of makes me a little bit sad that you would take it that way. But that's certainly not how I mean it at all. And I think most people understand that. Exactly, you can use it. It does not only mean homosexual. The original meaning of gay is happy. That's exactly right. But I don't even mean it like that either, Tamara. I don't mean happy. I don't mean homosexual. It's just kind of, I think in the 21st century, that word sort of took on a bit of a new meaning. And James says, my partner took his life recently. I'm very sorry to hear that, James. I am very sorry to hear that. Not offensive to Mui. I'm glad to hear that, Ali. And that's just kind of like my belief system, right? Is that we all I actually posted on X today and said, just a reminder, anything that offends you in the entire world is entirely your problem. Because it is. And I'm not talking to you right now, James. I'm just speaking in a general sense. And that's not even like an attack, right? That's just something that we should all probably realize, that if something offends you, that's because you obviously have a belief system that entertains the idea that something is like something being a certain way is like not the way that it should be. But the reality is, you know, who are you to determine the way things should be for anybody else? Because we are all living and experiencing life in our own way. And our framework and our belief systems are all made up by our own individual experiences and things that we've dealt with and people that we've met and things that we've been taught. So I think once you realize that, the thing is, I think once you start to realize that, it kind of becomes a little bit impossible to be offended by anything, because you start to realize that anyone who has a belief system or something that doesn't gel with yours, that's not offensive. That doesn't mean they're evil or they're bad. It actually just means that they grew up in a way far different to the way you grew up, and that the things they were taught, their belief systems, are just very different to yours. And that's okay. That's the nature of reality. That's what's going to happen when you have people growing up in like rural Mongolia and New York City. Those people are probably going to have pretty different belief systems. And if you are from New York City and you're offended that the Mongolians like to cook cats for dinner, and you think that that's evil and mean, then you should probably get used to the idea that people in Mongolia don't live in penthouses in New York and have Uber Eats ready to go. You know what I mean? That's kind of an abstract example, but hopefully that kind of settles it for everybody. And you don't think that I'm a homophobe, which I'm sure you don't, because I know you guys aren't retarded. That's why you're here, because you're smart, right? You've got an open mind, and we like that. Michael Charles, you absolute freak. And I know that picture, sir. I know who you are. Yep. I know who you are. We've spoke before, quite a few times, actually. Michael Charles, longtime supporter. Me and this guy used to talk quite a bit on TikTok, back when I was only on TikTok, actually. So thank you, bro. Nice to see you join the Weirdos. I appreciate you, man. Longtime viewer. Make sure you check out the members-only content. Get in the Discord if you want to come hang out and join the conversation as well. But I think that probably wraps up the show for today, guys. I've probably lost enough of my gay audience by now. Unintentionally, of course. I hope you don't go. But no, look, I'm just kidding. You guys know I like to push the envelope a little bit and talk shit because I think it's funny. And also, you know, if it does offend people and they do want to leave, I actually think that's a positive because it helps me sort out who belongs here and who doesn't, okay? I'm not trying to please everybody because that's impossible. So thank you guys for being here. I hope you enjoyed it. Take care, be good, be kind, and I will see you hopefully tomorrow with a video. Take care.
Eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on?
No matter how far you go into the dark, when you flip, you go exactly the same place to the light in our galaxy. Everything. Because everything is in balance. Everything is a polarity.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is.